Well, hello and welcome back to Shadow Chat Sessions, the only show on this network where we willingly open the door to the internet's darkest corners, and instead of closing it, we walk in and start taking notes. This is where logic takes a backseat, common sense gets left in the trunk, and somehow every story makes you question whether we're actually the dominant species or just the loudest.
Loudest.
Because I'll be honest, every time we do one of these episodes, I go in thinking, how bad could it be this week? And every single time the answer is worse.
You never ask how bad can it be.
Not worse in a dark and disturbing way, in a how is this real? Who allowed this? And why are we like this as a species kind of way? And if you enjoy that feeling, first of all, questionable judgment, but also go ahead and hit follow, drop a like, leave a review, whatever your platform lets you do, because apparently the more you interact with this show, the more it tells the algorithm that, yeah, more people should hear this, which actually feels irresponsible, but we're going to keep doing it anyway, because somewhere out there, someone is making a decision they absolutely should not be making.
And we'll be talking about it.
Someone else is documenting it, and eventually it is going to end up here. Ready for us to break down and ask the only question that really matters, and that is, what the hell were they thinking? So, Angela, how are you doing?
I am all right. How are you?
I'm good. Are you ready to once again dive into stories that make absolutely no sense, but somehow still happen?
I am, but can I do a shameless plug first?
Of course, have at it.
If you are listening to this before Father's Day 2026, what he asked you to do a moment ago, the likes, the follows, the shares, they will get you entered to win a pretty freaking sweet guitar.
It's freaking awesome.
From Hawk Studios, the JJ Hawk Band, whose music we use in our other shows. So just pointing that out there. Also, if you go find Hawk Studios.
Only my integrity keeps me from entering 1,000 times.
Yeah, well.
Just say, I want the guitar. I can't win it. I won't win it, but I want it.
But your family can win it.
Well,
if
I'm encouraging everybody that I talk to.
And they go like, follow, comment JJ Hawk, Hawk Studios on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube.
All the things.
Each equal an entry. So there's my plug. Before Father's Day 2026, because Father's Day is when it's going to be given away.
And that's coming up, so get your asses in gear out there. All right, you ready for the strange headline segment?
I am.
Okay, so this one, you have to really listen when I say the headline, okay?
I'm going to say one more thing. Send us a strange headline, and I'll enter you 10 times. info@darkdialogue.com.
Strange headline, info@darkdialogue.com, 10 entries.
Okay,
all right,
go.
We ready?
Yeah.
Listen closely.
Okay.
Teen pregnancy drops significantly after age 25. A widely circulated headline and quote attributed to a Colorado politician claims that teen pregnancy drops significantly after age 25, which is technically true, but only because teen stops at 19.
I give up. I'm done.
Right. So the strange headline, and this is one of...
Somebody published this.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one is one of those rare moments where the sentence is doing all the work for us, because the headline literally reads, statistics show that teen pregnancy drops off significantly after age 25. So just sit with that for a second.
I can't.
Teen pregnancy after 25. Now, I'm no statistician, but I'm pretty confident that by the time you hit 25, you are no longer a teenager, which means this isn't even wrong in a complicated way. Yeah. This is wrong in a definition of the words kind of way. And that's what makes it incredible, because somewhere This was said out loud, seriously, in a policy context and not as a joke, which means at some point, someone was trying to make an argument and accidentally created one of the funniest unintentional statistics of all time. Now, technically, yes, teen pregnancy does drop off after 25. It actually drops to 0 because, again, you're no longer a teen. That's like saying car accidents involving toddlers decrease significantly after age 30. Yeah, I would hope so. Mm-hmm. And the best part, this wasn't phrased like, oh, hey, I misspoke. No, it was presented like this is data, like a statistic you should take seriously, which means somewhere someone heard this and went, yeah, the numbers check out. My take? This is my favorite kind of dumb, not chaotic dumb and not criminal dumb. This is confident, official, microphone in front of you kind of dumb. Because, and proofread. Because it's not just wrong, it's wrong in a way that assumes no one is going to question it. Like, if you say it with enough authority, people will just nod and move on. Mm-hmm. Also, this is exactly why people do not trust statistics. Not because stats are bad, but because sometimes the person using them has absolutely no idea what they're actually saying. And honestly, I kind of respect how far this got because it made it into the headlines. It got repeated. It became a quote. That's not a mistake. That's a legacy.
You know, Abe Lincoln said, don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
He did.
So what's the worst, technically true, but completely useless statistic that you can think of?
I can't think beyond this one.
Yeah, this one kind of takes the cake.
Yeah, there's cake to be had.
So at what point does confidence make something sound more believable than it probably should?
Big words, using big words.
Well, teen pregnancy dropping off at 25.
Yeah, this is not sounding as good as it should, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Is this worse than being wrong or just a different kind of wrong entirely?
A different kind of wrong. But it would have sounded better should it have said teen pregnancy de-escalates at 25. See, that sounds a little better. Bigger words.
I guess maybe you're right.
Bigger words.
All right, you ready for the conspiracy corner?
Always.
The lizard people are running the world. A long-running conspiracy theory claims that shape-shifting reptilian humanoids secretly control governments, media, and global power structures. And yes, millions of people have at least entertained the idea. So today we're asking a very important question. Are the world's leaders secretly lizards? Now, before you answer that too quickly, let's break this down because this theory, commonly known as the reptilian or lizard people conspiracy, claims that powerful figures in the government, in media, in banking, and even in royal families are actually not human. They're actually shape-shifting reptilian beings disguised as humans. And not just random reptiles. We're talking interdimensional, alien origin, possibly from a place called Alpha Draconis, which already sounds like something that should not be involved in local government. Now, according to the theory, these reptilian beings can appear completely human, control global systems, manipulate people through power, influence, and sometimes mind control. Basically, every conspiracy rolled all cleanly into one. And the modern version of this really takes off in the late 1990s with a guy named David Icke, who essentially says, yeah, all of that shadowy power structure stuff, they're lizards, not metaphorically, literally. And from there, it spreads. Books, literature, internet forums, eventually YouTube. And now we're at a point where millions of people have either believed this or at least gone, okay, but what if? Which is wild because this is one of those theories that sounds like a joke, but isn't always treated like one. My take? Here's where this gets interesting and also where it stops being just funny because on the surface, this is ridiculous. Like completely ridiculous. You're telling me hyper-advanced reptilian overlords have mastered interdimensional travel, human disguise, global control systems, and their end game is city council meetings? Mm-hmm. Like, imagine being an all-powerful alien and thinking, yeah, zoning regulations. This is where I exert my dominance. But underneath that, this follows a pattern, because if you strip away the lizard part, what you're left with is this: hidden elites, secret control, manipulation of society, a group of others running everything. And that structure, well, that's been around for a long time, just with different labels. And that's where it starts to cross from funny internet nonsense into something a little more serious, because some people don't treat it like a joke. People have acted on beliefs tied to this kind of thinking. That is where it stops being, haha, lizard people, and it starts to become, okay, what happens when somebody actually believes this? So, yeah, on one hand, this is one of the most absurd conspiracy theories out there, but on the other, it's built on the same framework as a lot of much older and much more dangerous kind of ideas. So why do you think people are more willing to believe something extreme like this rather than some simpler explanation?
I don't know. I feel like nothing can be understood, so extreme makes it better. I also want to know if we can control these people with the charcuterie board of vegetables, scrubs, and mealworms.
I think you just need the hot rock. Because I had a lizard, and I could put the hot rock wherever I wanted, and that lizard would always go to it. So that's all we need, I think.
Just a hot rock.
Yeah. And we're pretty safe here in Wyoming. We hit like 50 below or something. So I think we're pretty safe from
They'll
reptilian.
stay away from us? Okay.
Yeah. But I got to say, I've said it before, I am a conspiracy theorist. I believe a lot of conspiracy theories that people say I'm wacko for. But come on. Some of this shit is so absurd. Now, if a group was secretly running the world, would it actually look anything like this?
It might.
It
might.
You do have a point. Okay. Conspiracy Corner took a sharp left turn, and we are now embracing all of these conspiracies. So where's the line between fun conspiracy and something that becomes dangerous?
I think it's out in the desert somewhere.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. We haven't found it yet.
I agree. You ready for the rabbit?
Or it's in the ocean, because, you know.
You ready for the Reddit rabbit hole?
Yeah. Am I ready?
I don't know. Do you like Garfield?
Okay.
A surreal and disturbing subreddit where Garfield, the lazy orange cat, is reimagined as a grotesque cosmic horror entity, and John is no longer the owner, but the victim.
Is no one safe?
And this one starts in a place that should feel safe. Garfield. Yeah. Lazy, hates Mondays, eats lasagna, mildly judges his owner, John.
Sends Normal to Abu Dhabi.
That's pretty much it. That's the entire vibe. And then the internet said, what if we ruined that completely? Enter our I'm sorry, John.
So rude.
Now, at first glance, it looks like fan art until you realize something is very, very wrong here. Because in this subreddit, Garfield is no longer a cat. He's something else. Something massive, shapeless, expanding, sometimes fused into walls, floors, entire rooms.
Ew.
Eyes where they shouldn't be. Limbs that don't make sense.
Do I want to see this?
A body that looks less like an animal and more like a thing trying to become one. And John? Well, John is still there, but he's no longer the owner because he's trapped.
Where's Odie?
Watching this thing that used to be his cat slowly take over everything around him. And almost every post has some variation of the phrase, I'm sorry, John.
Oh, no.
Which hits way harder than it should, especially if your name's John,
no.
Because it implies two different things at the same time. One, Garfield knows what he's doing, and two, it doesn't matter. Now, the whole thing started as a parody, artists taking a harmless character and pushing it to the absolute extreme. But like a lot of internet rabbit holes, it evolved. People started building lore, recurring versions of Garfield, entire cosmic horror Garfield universe concepts, where Garfield isn't just a monster, he's something inevitable, like a force, like gravity, like if existence itself decided to take the shape of a cat and ruin your life. And the longer you scroll, the less funny it gets because the art gets better. It's more detailed. It's more disturbing. And at some point, your brain stops going, haha, weird Garfield. And it starts going, why is this actually unsettling?
I'm trying really hard not to look it up, but I want to.
My take? This is one of those things that the internet does that I both respect and I deeply question, because someone looked at Garfield, probably the least threatening character imaginable, and thought, you know what this needs? Existential horror.
Yeah.
And not just surface level horror. We're talking body horror, cosmic horror. You cannot escape this kind of horror, all built around a cat whose biggest problem used to be Mondays. Also, I love how committed everyone is to the phrase, I'm sorry, John.
Sorry, John.
Because it's never explained. There's no context. It's just accepted. Like, whatever this thing is, it's already too late. And honestly, that's what makes it work, because the scariest part is not what Garfield looks like. It's the idea that it's aware and in control, and there's nothing John can do about it. Also, I will never look at a normal Garfield comic the same way again, because now in the back of my head, I'm thinking, is this just the early stages? So why does taking something familiar and making it horrifying work so well?
Because of that, it's pure, it's honest, it's innocent, and you turn it into crap.
I like Garfield.
I know.
I have a big problem with
I want
this.
to look. I really
Look,
do.
it's freaking jacked up, man. I tell you what. And some of the shit, like, I went to a new level with Reddit because I ran out of normal air quotes things to look at.
Yeah.
And now I'm finding like horrifying Garfield. So I don't know what that tells you, but so at what point does a joke like this stop being funny and it start being unsettling?
When it takes your beloved Saturday
Garfield?
morning cartoon characters.
So if Garfield did become a cosmic entity, what's the first thing that he would destroy?
Lasagna.
I think so too. All right, you ready for Dipshit's Diaries?
Yeah. Well, I'm still looking for this because I can't find it.
All right, well, when you find it, I told you the thing. It's R something.
Yeah, I found that, but there's like no images with it.
Really?
Yeah.
I found a shit ton.
Dipshit Diaries.
All right, Dipshit's Diaries number 1. The robber who brought his birth certificate. A man robbed a woman for $40 and accidentally left behind his birth certificate and a letter from his mom, making it incredibly easy for police to identify and arrest him. This one feels less like a crime and more like someone submitting paperwork incorrectly. June 2013, Boston. We've got 26-year-old Zachary Tintoni. Now, his plan, if we can call it that, is simple. He approaches a woman near a middle school playground. He asks if she's a teacher, which is already a weird opener. And then he grabs her wallet. The total haul, about $40. So not exactly Ocean's 11, more like Ocean's Loose Change. He takes the wallet and he runs. And at this point, the story should end with maybe a vague description, a short investigation, police trying to figure out who this guy is. Except while he's running, he drops his bag that he was carrying. And inside that bag, not just random stuff, not just something traceable. No, this man left behind his birth certificate, a letter from his mother, and other documents with his full name on them. Sir, That is not evidence. That is a portfolio. That's more documentation than most people bring to a job interview. So now, instead of detectives having to track down leads, run descriptions, build a case, they basically just pick up the bag, look inside, and go, all right, well, that was easy. They identify him almost immediately, get a warrant, and he's later arrested in Connecticut, all because he turned a $40 robbery into a full-service identity submission. My take? This is what I would call overprepared incompetence, because most criminals make one mistake. This guy made a series of decisions that led to him handing over his full legal identity, proof of existence, and what I can only assume was a very disappointed letter from his mother. Also, who carries around their birth certificate? That's not something you just casually have on you.
That was my first question.
That's like DMV day, job paperwork, maybe.
Yeah.
I need proof that I'm a real person level kind of stuff, not I'm about to commit a felony. And honestly, I feel like the letter from his mom is the worst part, because you know that was not written with this in mind. Somewhere out there is a mother who wrote a heartfelt note and ended up as evidence in a robbery case. That's a tough day.
Poor mom.
Also, from an investigative standpoint, this is a dream. This is the kind of case where detectives go home early. So, what's the worst possible thing that you could accidentally leave at the crime scene?
You have asked this so many times.
I think your birth certificate is at the top
Birth
of that
certificate,
list.
driver's license. What was it? A job resume once? People be leaving some weird shit.
I agree. So at what point in this robbery do you think he realized, shit, I messed up?
I don't know if he did.
Probably didn't. Is this worse than having no plan, or is this technically a plan that just went horribly wrong?
I think it's worse than having no plan.
I think so too. Yeah.
Spontaneity seems a little better than this.
So before we move on to dipshits number 2, did you find Garfield?
I did, and they're not only doing Garfield. I found Big Bird, Bert and Ernie.
They're all evil.
Yeah.
Well, I could have told you that.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for dipshit diaries number 2?
I am.
The bank robber who called into a radio show.
Oh my goodness. Why are they calling ahead?
After helping pull off a real bank robbery, a man called into a radio station to brag about it, giving enough detail for listeners and the FBI to identify him.
I'm done.
So this one is a masterclass in a very simple concept. You got away with it, and then you talked. April 2004, South Chicago Heights. A group pulls off a real bank robbery. TFC Bank inside a grocery store. They walk away with about $81,000. Clean, no immediate arrest, no obvious suspects.
No birth certificate.
At this point, you've done the hardest part. All you have to do now is nothing. Just exist quietly. Don't draw attention. Don't tell anybody. Right off into the sunset. But a few months later, one of the guys involved, Randy Washington, decides that what this situation really needs is public recognition. So he calls into a Chicago radio station, The Morning Show. They're doing a confession segment, which already feels like a trap.
Yeah.
And he goes on the air under the name D, and he starts describing a robbery, not vaguely, not hypothetically, in detail. He talks about the bank, how it went down, what people were wearing, how the money was spent, and what they did with it. Basically, a full behind-the-scenes breakdown of the entire crime, and somewhere in Chicago, a bank employee who was there that day is listening, hears the story, and realizes, hey, that's us. So they contact the FBI. The FBI traces the call, and now, instead of building a case from scratch, they've got a recorded confession, specific details that match the crime, and a suspect who voluntarily stepped into the spotlight, and he's identified as Randy Washington, who is arrested and eventually sentenced to about 40 months in federal prison, all because he couldn't resist calling into a radio show and saying, hey, that robbery? That was me. My take? This is the purest example of self-snitching that I have ever seen, because you did everything right, at least from a criminal standpoint, and you pulled off the robbery. You got away. Time passed. You won. And then you said, you know what would make this better? Attention. Also, let's talk about the confidence here. Calling into a radio station, broadcasting your voice, explaining the crime, like the FBI isn't sitting there going, oh, please continue.
Yeah.
That's not bravery. That is a complete misunderstanding of how consequences work. And honestly, the wildest part, you didn't get caught because of forensic evidence. You didn't get caught because of surveillance. You got caught because someone was driving to work, listening to the radio, and went, that's the guy. That's it. That's the moment that everything falls apart. So what is the psychological need to brag about something that you just got away with?
I will never understand.
I won't either. At all.
I'll never understand it.
So at what point during the phone call do you think this became a terrible idea?
1-800.
I mean, it blows my mind. These stories blow my mind.
They do.
Is this worse than leaving evidence behind, or is it just the next level of the same kind of mistake?
The next level. He took it to the next level.
I think so too.
That was a graduation.
You ready for number 3?
Mm-hmm.
The man who used 911 as a dating service.
Are you?
Where are we going with this one?
I don't know.
What's your guess?
I'm sad.
Oh, come on. It's an easy guess.
The dispatcher.
No, what state?
Oh, Florida.
A Florida man repeatedly called 911, not for an emergency, but to ask a female dispatcher for sex.
Florida.
And was arrested shortly after police
Get it
traced the
together.
calls. All right. Number 3. And this one answers a question that absolutely nobody was asking. What if someone treated 911 like Tinder? 2009, Florida, because of course it is. We've got 29-year-old Joshua Basso.
It's now, 976, not 911.
Here's the situation. His phone runs out of minutes, which for most people means you wait, you recharge, or maybe you go outside and you touch grass. Not Joshua, because Joshua realizes something. 911 calls are free. And instead of thinking, okay, this is for emergencies only, he thinks, perfect, I'm going to shoot my shot. So he calls 911. And instead of reporting an emergency, he starts making sexual comments to the dispatcher, asking if she's into, quote, freaky things, asking if he can come over. Just full on treating an emergency operator like this is a late night phone line in the 1990s. The dispatcher obviously hangs up, but he doesn't stop. He calls back again and again. At no point does it occur to him that this line is recorded, that this is traceable, and that this is
illegal?
Literally the worst possible place that you could possibly do something like this. So after multiple calls, police trace the number, and within about 15 minutes, they're at his house, which is about the fastest turnaround that you're ever going to get from law enforcement. And just like that, the date is canceled and it's replaced with an arrest. My take? This is what happens when bad decisions meet terrible logic, because somewhere in his brain, this made sense. My phone doesn't work. 911 is free. I'm feeling lonely. Let's combine all three. That's not a plan. That's a cry for consequences. Also, this might be the worst possible misuse of 911 that I have ever heard of. And not just because it's dumb, but because while he's doing this, there are people with actual emergencies trying to get through, and he's tying up the line like, hey, quick question. You busy later? No, she's busy right now because this is literally her job. And honestly, the speed of the arrest is my favorite part because there's no investigation here. There's no detective board, just phone rings, dispatcher gets harassed, police go, all right, we're done with this. And they show up. That's it. Case closed in under an hour. So what is the worst possible misuse of 911 that you can think of?
I think this is up there.
I was stunned by this. I got to say.
To be fair, he effectively ended his loneliness. So he did.
This is true.
Yeah.
I think he met somebody named Sam instead of Samantha.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right.
He's not lonely anymore.
This is true.
So win.
So at what point during those calls do you think he should have realized that this might be a bad idea? I mean, I got to say, if you call 911 and try to make it into a sex line,
yeah,
at that point, that's the point. It's a bad idea.
Yeah. He's 65 numbers off.
Yeah. So is this the fastest self-created arrest that we have seen so far?
It should be.
I think it might be.
It should be.
All right, you ready for the weird shit section?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Oh, you have to. Oh, no.
Weird shit.
Napoleon.
Oh, no. He had to adjust in his chair, folks.
Napoleon versus the rabbits. After a major diplomatic victory in 1807, Napoleon was reportedly overwhelmed during a celebratory rabbit hunt when hundreds of rabbits charged him instead of running away. All right, weird shit.
We'll show you.
This one is what I would call history, but embarrassing, because in 1807, Napoleon, fresh off one of his biggest wins after the treaties of Tilsit, decides to celebrate the way that powerful men did back then, a hunting party. Now, this wasn't just any hunt. This was organized by his chief of staff, a big production. Hundreds, possibly even thousands of rabbits gathered for the event. Everything is set. Napoleon and his officers are ready. Cages are opened. And this is where things go very wrong, because instead of scattering like wild animals, the rabbits charge, not away from Napoleon, toward him, and not in a slow and kind of cautious way. We're talking rabbits swarming his legs, jumping onto his coat, piling into him like he's the main course. And now you've got one of the most powerful men in the world being aggressively approached by what is essentially a fluffy mob.
Buddy pile.
At first, it's probably confusing, and then it becomes a problem because they don't stop. More rabbits, more movement, more chaos. His officers are trying to swat him away, and Napoleon, who has faced down entire armies, is now backing up, eventually retreating to his carriage while rabbits are still coming at him, which is not a sentence anyone expected to say about Napoleon. Now, historically, this wasn't some animal uprising. It was a logistical disaster because instead of wild rabbits, they used domestic farm-raised rabbits, which means they're used to humans.
Oh.
They associate people with food, and they were probably hungry. So when the cages open, they don't think danger. They think, finally, some food.
Snack time.
And Napoleon just happens to be standing there like a very confused buffet. My take? This might be my favorite kind of history story because it doesn't matter how powerful you are. At some point, something ridiculous is going to happen to you. This is a guy who conquered massive parts of Europe, defeated armies, reshaped entire countries, and then one day he loses a tactical engagement to rabbits. Also, I love the idea of his generals trying to spin this afterwards. Sir, technically, you were flanked. No, you were surrounded by lunch-seeking rodents. That's what happened. And honestly, the visual of elite military officers, trained soldiers, trying to maintain composure while kicking away rabbits climbing their boots, oh, that's incredible. That's the kind of moment that history books do not lead with, but they absolutely should, because if nothing else, it proves one very important point. You can plan everything perfectly. You can win the war, control the situation, and still get taken out by something that you didn't consider a threat, like several hundred very hungry rabbits. So, what is the most ridiculous way a powerful historical figure could lose control of a situation?
Rabbits of mass destruction.
Yeah, I mean, this is up there. There's so many stories like this, though. It's kind of comical.
I kind of love this story.
So at what point does this go from funny to we need to leave immediately?
I think it's still funny.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious that we're bringing it up on Shadow Chats almost 250 years later.
Yeah,
I kind of love that idea.
Yeah.
So if you were there,
Nothing is safe.
Do you help or do you just watch this unfold?
I don't. My first instinct is I'd probably be laughing too hard.
Well, I got to say, everything that I know about Napoleon is he was a short, scrawny little man with little man syndrome who thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. And I'd probably laugh my ass off.
Didn't he wear a lot of bright colors too? So he was probably looked like vegetables and attract them.
I don't know anything about that. Everything I see about Napoleon is he's in his French military uniform.
I thought there was a lot of red though.
I think mostly blue and white. But
fine.
All right, you ready for the next weird shit, which is the cryptid section?
Yes. My section. He finally gave me my own section.
Tell me if you've heard of this one. Tatzelwurm.
Did you say that backwards?
I don't think so. A long-standing alpine cryptid, the Tatzelwurm, Tatzelwurm. Let me try that again. Tatzelwurm. Tatzelwurm is described as a short, snake-bodied creature with a cat-like face said to lurk in the mountains of Switzerland and Austria. This one feels like someone tried to design a creature and just couldn't commit to a single animal because this is the Tatzelwurm. And the best way to describe it is part snake, part lizard, part cat, all bad decisions. This thing comes out of the Alps, Switzerland, Austria, the whole region, and has been showing up in stories for hundreds of years. And the descriptions are consistent enough to be weird. People say it looks like a thick, snake-like body covered in dark scales, about 2 to 7 feet long, and then you get to the head, and suddenly it's not a snake anymore. It's got a cat-like face, big eyes, short snout, almost like a very annoyed barn cat attached to something that absolutely should not have a cat's face. And then, just to make things worse, some versions give it 2 short front legs, or 4 stubby legs, or basically just enough limbs to make it uncomfortable to look at. And according to legend, this thing is not friendly. We're talking venomous bites, deadly encounters, stories of killing livestock, sometimes even claims that it can kill a person, which is a bold reputation for something that looks like a cat got stretched out and made aggressive. Now, sightings go back to at least the 1600s. Hunters, farmers, hikers, all claiming quick glimpses of something, slithering through rocks, disappearing into crevices, moving just fast enough that you can't fully process what you just saw. And that's the key, because nobody ever gets a good, clean look. It's always, I saw it for a second. It moved too fast. It disappeared before I could react, which is exactly how cryptids survive forever. There's even a famous photo from the 1930s that supposedly shows one, but like most cryptid photos, it's questionable. Let's call it optimistic. My take? This is one of those cryptids that feels like your brain is trying to fill in the gaps and just makes things worse, because imagine you're hiking in the Alps. You see something move, low to the ground, scaled, weird shape, and your brain goes, snake? No, lizard. No, wait, why does it have a cat's face? And instead of resolving that confusion, you just leave with, yeah, that was the Tatzelwurm. Also, I love how every region has their own version of this. Like in the US, we've got Bigfoot, Scotland, it's Nessie, and the Alps, they've got a grumpy cat snake that might kill you. Same energy, different branding. And realistically, There are probably explanations, weird angles, fast movement, misidentified animals, but the human brain doesn't like maybe. It likes answers. So instead of, I saw something I don't understand, it becomes, there's a venomous cat dragon living in the mountains. And honestly, that's a way better story. So why does the brain tend to combine familiar features into something completely new when it's unsure?
Because it makes it scarier.
You think so?
I think so.
Or is the tensile worm real?
I don't know. But this real picture doesn't look like a worm or a cat. It looks like a beetle.
You must be looking at the wrong thing. That's not what I saw.
It claims that that's the one taken in 1934.
Oh, maybe. So would you rather encounter something that you clearly can identify or something that makes no sense at all?
Something that makes no sense at all.
I'd rather, if it's snake-like, I want something I can identify. I don't do snakes.
Okay.
What's the weirdest animal combination that could actually exist and still be believable?
I don't know.
I think snake and cat is pretty well at the top of the list.
You think it can be that's believable? Cat snake?
I don't know. I mean, the thing's been seen since the 1600s. That makes it more believable.
I guess. I don't know.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
The ghost ship Ourang Medan. A mysterious ship reportedly sent a chilling distress signal claiming its entire crew was dead, only for rescuers to find everyone aboard lifeless with no visible injuries before the ship exploded and sank, erasing all the evidence. So this one sounds like it was written specifically to mess with people, because the story goes like this. Late 1940s, somewhere in the Strait of Malacca, multiple ships pick up a distress signal, Morse code, short, fragmented, and it says, all officers, and this is a quote, all officers, including captain, dead, break, lying in chart room and bridge, break, probably whole crew dead, break, and then one final message, I die. That's it. That's all you get. So naturally, a nearby ship, the Silver Star, goes to investigate. They find the vessel, the Ourang Medan, drifting, silent, no visible damage. So they board it. And what they find is where this turns into nightmare fuel. The entire crew is dead, not injured, not burned, not attacked, just dead. And the descriptions are always the same. Bodies lying where they fell, eyes wide open, mouths frozen, faces twisted like they died in absolute terror. Even the dog, dead. Same expression.
The dog.
Some accounts say crew members had their arms outstretched like they were pointing at something, which is not what you want to hear on a ship with no one alive to explain it. No signs of struggle, no visible cause, no explanation, just a full crew gone. So now the rescue crew does the logical thing. All right, we're towing this thing back, but before they can, smoke starts coming from the cargo hold, and then fire, and then suddenly the ship explodes and sinks, taking down the bodies, the ship, and every possible piece of evidence straight to the bottom of the ocean. And just like that, you've got one of the cleanest, creepiest, no answer stories ever told. My take? This is one of those stories that is perfect. And that's exactly the problem, because everything about this hits like a horror movie. Creepy distress call, dead crew with no injuries, unexplained terror, sudden explosion, wiping out all the evidence. It's almost too perfect. And that's where things start to fall apart a little, because when you actually dig into it, there's no solid record of the ship, no confirmed registry, no official investigation file. The timeline shifts depending on who's telling it. Details get added later, which means this might not even be a real case. It might be a story that got built over time, like a game of telephone, but with dead sailors and explosions. Now, could something like this happen? Sure, it has. You've got possibilities like toxic gas, chemical leaks, carbon monoxide, unexplained things, all things that could kill a crew without obvious injuries. But here's the issue. Those explanations rely on a ship that may not have existed in the first place. So now you're not solving a mystery, you're analyzing a legend. And honestly, that might be more interesting because this is what the human brain does. It gives you a vague story, a few creepy details, and it builds a full horror narrative, complete with visuals, emotion, and just enough missing pieces to keep this alive forever. So what makes a story like this feel more believable even when the evidence for it is weak?
Well, now I'm going to say because they're claiming there was a survivor.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Very interesting.
A newspaper from the 1940s told one story about Jerry Rabbit, who was apparently washed up on shore.
That sounds like a very believable name.
Yes, yes.
It should have been Peter, just saying.
He washed up on shore.
That's what happened to Peter's brother.
Yes.
Interesting.
I didn't even think of that when I first read it. But yeah, supposedly, yes, there was a survivor.
Huh.
And he was talking about 6 other people snuck away in a lifeboat, too.
Interesting. I did not find that, but I don't really research these all that much. So is a mystery more compelling when there's no explanation or when there's too many?
When there's no explanation. When there's too many, it's just... But this, he's claiming sulfuric acid, potassium cyanide, nitroglycerin is what the ship was carrying. Hence the explosion.
Interesting. So do you think something like this actually happened, or is the story itself the real phenomenon?
I don't know now.
I don't know either.
I want to believe it happened. I want to believe that Jerry's out there and he's...
I mean, there's
telling the truth.
There's a story of the Mary Celeste. You know that one, right?
Mm-mm.
Well, it's very similar.
Mm.
You know, they found the ship afloat and everybody was dead.
Yeah.
That one is well documented because they actually did bring that ship ashore. And then there was a whole trial because they said that the guys that brought it to shore, because the rule was if you brought it to shore, it was yours.
Yeah.
And so they were put on trial for murdering the crew.
Right.
Because
they took
to steal
possession.
the ship. Right.
This also said, did you say, I don't know, but their faces were turned to the sun.
Oh, I don't think I saw that part.
Yes. Teeth bared, faces turned to the sun, staring as if in fear. Even the dog on the ship had died while barking, it claimed.
Yeah, I struggle with that.
That makes me sad.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Yes.
The Lake Michigan Stonehenge. Have you heard about this?
No, but I
Neither
like
had
where we're
I.
going.
An underwater stone formation discovered in Lake Michigan has been compared to Stonehenge and may even include a carving resembling a mastodon, but its true purpose is still debated. All right, this is the wild card section, and this one feels like it should come with dramatic music, but also a fact checker standing nearby, because in 2007, a team of archaeologists is scanning the bottom of Lake Michigan, not looking for anything crazy, just shipwrecks, normal stuff, and instead, they find something that makes them stop. On sonar, a long, deliberate line of stones, not random, not scattered, arranged, over a mile long in some areas, with clusters that look almost like circles. And now the question becomes, okay, why are there organized stone structures at the bottom of a lake? And the answer is actually where this gets interesting, because thousands of years ago, around the end of the last ice age, that area was not underwater. It was land, which means if these stones were placed by people, you're potentially looking at something around 9,000 to 10,000 years old, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, just sitting under a lake in Michigan like it forgot to tell anyone it existed. Now, of course, the internet hears this and immediately goes, Midwestern Atlantis, but researchers are a little more grounded because similar stone formations have been found in other parts of the Great Lakes, and they're believed to be hunting structures, basically long stone lines used to funnel animals, guiding them into specific areas, making hunting easier, which is way less mystical, but honestly kind of more impressive because now you're picturing Ice Age hunters standing where boats are today, building large-scale structures to control animal movement. That's not primitive, that's strategy. But then, because this story needed one more layer of chaos, there's a stone, a single boulder, that appears to have a carving on it. And depending on who you ask, that carving looks like a mastodon, which, if true, would mean people were carving animals that went extinct over 11,000 years ago, which is a big deal. Or it's just a rock that kind of looks like something, because humans are very good at seeing patterns that may or may not actually be there. And that's where this whole story lives, right in that space in between. This is an incredible ancient history, and we might be getting a little carried away here. My take, this is one of those stories where both versions are very interesting because on one hand, you've got the internet version, underwater Stonehenge, mastodon carvings, lost civilization. And on the other hand, you've got the reality, ancient hunting lanes, really smart people doing very practical things. And honestly, the real version is still freaking awesome because we tend to underestimate how advanced early humans actually were. Like, these weren't just people wandering around hoping for the best. They were planning, building, adapting to environments that were constantly changing. And now those environments are underwater. Also, this is a perfect example of how quickly things escalate because someone finds rocks and within 48 hours we have discovered the lost Midwest Empire. No, we found stones in a line. Let's relax here. But I will say this, if I'm out on Lake Michigan and someone tells me there's a 10,000-year-old structure directly under me, I'm not going to think about it because that's the part that sticks. Not the aliens, not the mastodon debate, just the idea that there were people standing there thousands of years ago, and now it's underwater. That's weird enough.
Looks like an elephant to me.
It's freaking awesome, though, isn't it? Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I mean,
it looks like an elephant.
Awesome.
It is awesome. I like it.
So why do people jump to ancient mystery instead of just practical explanations?
Because it's cooler. Duh.
I mean, that structure under there is pretty freaking cool in its own right.
Yeah.
So what's more impressive, a ceremonial structure or a functional hunting system that actually worked?
Oh, functional hunting system.
I think so.
Yeah.
So if the water dropped tomorrow, what do you think we'd find at the bottom of places like the Great Lakes?
I both want to know and don't want to know at the same time.
It's fascinating to think about.
Yeah. I want to see if there really are fish as big as cars in the Buffalo Bill Reservoir, though.
There ain't no fish as big as cars in Buffalo Bill Reservoir. That's such nonsense.
Let me believe what I believe.
Well, you can believe it if you want to, but there ain't a town under there either.
People would beg to differ.
People are wrong. All right, you know what section we're up to now?
The state urban legends.
Yeah, 50 States of Strange.
50 States of Strange. I'm never going to remember the actual title. I just finally started remembering its urban legends.
And what state are we in?
I don't know.
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Because we were just in Colorado.
You have any ideas about what we're talking about in Connecticut this week?
Mothman?
No.
Oh.
Mothman. No. Mothman was in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Connecticut is Dudleytown. A small abandoned settlement in Connecticut known as Dudleytown is often called the Village of the Damned, with legends of cursed bloodline, madness, and paranormal activity, though much of it appears to be myth layered over real ordinary hardship. Continuing our 50 States of Strange, and for Connecticut, we're heading into the woods, the deep woods, the kind of place where even in the middle of the day, it feels like the sun's not fully getting through. This is Dudleytown, a small settlement founded in the mid-1700s, tucked into a valley in what's now Cornwall, Connecticut. And depending on who you ask, it's either one of the most cursed places in America or a really unlucky farming community that got a very dramatic reputation. The legend says that it all starts with the Dudley family. Supposedly, they brought a curse with them from England, tied to executions, political betrayal, and a bloodline doomed to tragedy. And once they settled in this isolated valley, things started going wrong. Stories include insanity, suicides, mysterious deaths, people just disappearing. And over time, the area becomes associated with something much darker. Not just bad luck, something in the woods. The surrounding forest even picks up the name Dark Entry Forest, which is not subtle. And as the years go by, the town slowly dies out. By the early 1900s, it's gone completely. No active community, just stone foundations, overgrown land, and a whole lot of stories. And that's when the legend really takes off, because now you've got an abandoned village in a dark forest with a history of hardship, which is basically the perfect setup for something evil is going to happen here. And over time, the stories grow, more details, more connections, more tragedy pulled in and tied back to this one place until Dudleytown becomes known as the Village of the Damned. My take? This is one of those places where the vibe is doing a lot of the work, because if you drop anyone into a dark, overgrown forest with abandoned stone foundations and tell them, hey, this place is cursed, they're going to feel something, even if nothing is actually there. And when you look at the history, a lot of it makes sense without anything supernatural. Bad land, poor farming conditions, isolation, people leaving for better opportunities. That's how a lot of early American settlements disappeared. But this version isn't very much fun. So instead, we take a few real tragedies, a difficult environment, and a name like Dudleytown, and we build a curse. Also, I love how secrecy feeds this. The land is privately owned now. No trespassing. People get turned away, which immediately makes it feel like, what are they hiding? Probably nothing, but your brain doesn't go there. It goes straight to, there is something in those woods. And honestly, that's how legends survive. Not because they're proven, but because they feel right. So what makes a place feel haunted, even if nothing actually happened there?
I would say the partial structures would do it for me.
Abandoned places are creepy.
Yes.
That's all there is to it. I don't know why.
Kerwin 100 times, but if you dropped me there at night and told me it was haunted, yeah, I'd believe it.
Different story.
It would feel totally different. Yes, it would.
Which brings us to our next question, and that is, why do abandoned locations almost always end up with darker stories attached to them?
Because people don't understand why they're abandoned and want to know.
I think so too. I think you look at a place and you say, this was a thriving community. What happened? And now it's a ghost town. Mm-hmm. What happened?
Something had
to have happened. Yeah. Like Kerwin, it was avalanches.
Yeah.
So we have a very natural explanation for that. People got tired of being buried by snow.
Yeah.
And so they left. But then there's places where it's like, it seems like a perfectly good place to live.
I know. What happened here?
Why is nobody here? And there's that place in Ohio. I fell into this. We talked about it once. I fell into this whole trap. There's this place in Ohio. I think it's called Helltown. I think that's the name of it.
Yeah, where they were.
And there's like this whole YouTube
supposedly
thing or something.
Forced to evacuate. That's what I thought this was when I first started looking at the pictures.
And then when you really start researching, it's like all made up bullshit. And you're like really disappointed. It's like Blair Witch all over again.
I was so pissed because it was so cool until it just wasn't.
So is Dudleytown more interesting as a real place or as a legend?
Legend.
I think so.
It's always.
I think so. All right. Well, do you have anything more to add? Because that's all I put together for us tonight. No? All right. Well, we're going to leave it right there, because at a certain point, you've taken enough chaos for one episode, and anything beyond that starts to feel like a personal choice. Now, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, make sure that you're following wherever you're listening. Drop a rating, leave a review, whatever your platform lets you do, because that's what helps this show grow. And for some reason, it tells the algorithm, yeah, this is worth recommending to other people, which Honestly, it feels like a bold decision, but we do appreciate it.
We do.
And if you want more from the network, each show has its own feed on audio platforms, so you can follow exactly what you want and binge your lane. Dark Dialogue Main Show, Distilled, Rocky Mountain Reckoning, Gallows and Gunfights, Unraveled Truth, same network, just different directions. And if you want to support what we're building, we've got the website, Patreon, Coffee, Substack. All of that helps us keep doing this, keep improving, and keep expanding everything that we're working on. As always, we'll be back with more weird shit, strange shit, dipshits, all the shits. So,
stay safe, everybody.
Have a great night.